is super important for us all to be aware of. We want to develop a spiritual practice. We think of ourselves as spiritual practitioners, or maybe we don't like any of that spiritual stuff. We just want to have a meaningful relationship with God, with life, the universe, however we understand it. And it's really important that we learn to think for ourselves. What's up, everybody? I'm excited to be making you a video today. I took you with me into the forest so we go for a little walk while we talk about this. The topic of today is thinking for yourself, informing your own relationship with a spiritual practice, or forming a relationship with God. Okay, so this is something that is super important for us all to be aware of. We want to develop a spiritual practice. We think of ourselves as spiritual practitioners, or maybe we don't like any of that spiritual stuff. We just want to have a meaningful relationship with God, with life, the universe, however we understand it. And it's really important that we learn to think for ourselves. Okay, this doesn't mean that we don't learn from other people. And in fact, learning, having teachers, gaining knowledge and wisdom from people beyond ourselves, from systems and traditions beyond ourselves, is super important. So don't get me wrong about that. However, at a certain point, we all get to a situation where we have to make our own choices. There's so many different systems, religions, ideas that are out there, theories about the way that the world is. And, this is not olden times anymore. We have access to all these different possibilities. You can Google all of them. You can get information about all these different traditions and why they are the way that they are. Okay? And they give you their perspective on why life is the way that it is. But ultimately, if you use your critical thinking skills and you're a smart person, which I'm sure you are, I know you are, then you start looking at them and you compare and contrast and you realize that there are some similarities and there are some differences. And how are you supposed to know which one is right and which one is wrong? Okay, this is ultimately where your own determining system, your own personal relationship with life, with God, becomes really, really important. And again, this doesn't mean that it can't be done in relationship or in conjunction with a system or a teaching that can help you work this sort of stuff out. At the same time, you got to think for yourself. And we can look to different traditions actually for giving us that guidance as well. Okay, so one example, check out this awesome place that I'm hanging out with you, right? Going for a walk in the forest, this beautiful bamboo forest on Maui, where I live, where I work with folks one-on-one, come on retreat with me, people who are ready to kind of really dive deep into their own spiritual adventure and their own spiritual development. So we have this forest. The Baal Shem Tov, who was kind of the progenitor, the creator of Hasidic Judaism in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in the, I don't know what, the 1600s, I think. So he used to tell his students, rather than be in the synagogue and the place of worship in the prayer hall, just praying, he said, go out to the forest. Go out to the forest and talk to God yourself. And don't follow some liturgy or what was supposed to do, the prayers you're supposed to say. Just go out there and pour your heart out. Go sit in the energy of this beautiful place and just talk to God as yourself. Just be real. Don't mess around, right? Don't create this situation where you try to memorize everything and do everything so perfectly. God doesn't want that. God wants you to have an earnest, authentic, real connection with him, her, them, it, however you want to define that. Okay, so that's one thing. So he used to say, go out and check it out. Go get connected yourself with God. Okay. In another tradition, we have the Sodo Chan Zen school in China and Japan. So leaving Europe, leaving Judeo-Christianity, go to the other side of the world, and let's talk about Zen Buddhism. And in that, you have this tradition of transmission, that there's a lineage that gets passed down from teacher to student, that the student has to kind of go through a lot of trials to ultimately grasp this transmission that comes from the teacher. And that's all fine and good. But if you look at the story of Dongshan, who is one of the older original patriarchs, and what he describes and the story shares about his experience with his teacher, Yunyan, and I hope I'm saying these names right, but he says that I actually can't fully believe my teacher. My teacher gives me this transmission, but if I fully believe him, or I take that as dogma, then I'm actually not doing right by my teacher. I'm not honoring what he's showing me. And in fact, I have to disagree with my teacher a little bit if I'm going to be myself, if I'm going to forge my own identity in this world. And what's more is that life, this world, God, the universe, wants us to forge that identity, does not want us to be a carbon copy of our teachers. Think about any good teacher that you know or have or come into contact with. You'll realize, if you look closely at their teachings, that they themselves have innovated, right? They themselves have made changes and integrated what they've learned over time and then transformed it into something that was applicable and useful and relevant for the people they were working with and coming into contact with, and that was appropriate for the time and the space that they were operating in, that they were living in. So what makes you think that you are any different, okay? We're not in the time anymore of just some big giant guru or spiritual figure that everyone flocks to, right? Each of us is involved in that in our own little way, in this wild information age, where me, as a total nobody, can sit here on this bamboo, beautiful path with you and make you this video to try to talk some sense, speak to some universal truths, and help you out in your own journey. But who am I? Who are you? If you want, I could be your spiritual teacher. I could be your guru. But that's inauthentic. It does not speak to me unless it's expressed in the same way that these teachings, these stories that I'm sharing today are, which is that you got to think for yourself. Okay, you have to take whatever the message is that is resonating for you, and you have to go deep inside into your own heart and into nature and connect with the wisdom of the universe as it is being offered there. If you can't do that, then you're always going to feel stunted. You're always going to feel like you're playing in someone else's game. And that's not what life wants of us. Life is actually yearning for us to be bold, to be a little bit rebellious, a little bit mischievous, to do what's needed to actually create our own autonomy and our own ideas, our own perspective. That's how life evolves. And so, I think that life ultimately brings us to certain moments where we ask, wait a minute, what is my role in all of this? And it gets kind of spooky and scary when we get there, because am I going to be a good person, a good boy, a good girl, and follow the traditions and the teachings that I've been given? I want to be, right? Most people who want to have a connection with the divine, they want to be good. And I get that. And I support that. I want that too, right? But at the same time, there's something trickstery about it. There's some wisdom that comes, as in Native American traditions, from Coyote, from Heyoka, from the trickster. There's some quality that pushes us to differentiate, to transform, to be our own version of the embodiment of life, of something sacred, divine in the world, and to give honor and thanks to life. I mean, check this out. Whew. To give honor and thanks to life based on that unique understanding of who we are. Okay, so wherever you're at in your journey, I'd be really curious if you leave a comment in the videos. Let's get a conversation going about this, because this is so difficult. It's very alive for me, and it's something that I really feel a lot of reverence for, along with reverence for the teachers and systems and religions and perspectives that I've gotten to encounter in my life. I wouldn't be who I am or anywhere close to the same without all those influences. But at the same time, I wouldn't be here making this video and sharing it with you and having the chutzpah, the terrible pride to share something unique and new if I wasn't willing to take the plunge. Okay, and so I want to encourage you to think about this in your own life. Where are you being called to think for yourself, and how can that deepen your relationship with the divine? Thank you guys. It's been really, really nice hanging out with you here in the forest today, and I'll talk to you soon.